All right, it is indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's the 12th of May 2023, tarehe ni 12 mwezi wa 5 mwaka 2023. Natumai kwamba uko salama hivyo kana pale. It's another tackle show, the Sheria Wiki edition of the 12th of May 2023. This is the tackle, the Sheria Wiki edition of the 12th of May 2023, and because I know kama kawaida every single Friday we look at the happenings of the week and we try to relate it to the legal perspective and also sometimes political. And as usual, we should be having Ekuru Aukot, who got an emergency, and he will not be able to join us this morning. Javas Bigambo as well seems not to come in. So we have Nerima Wako. Good morning, Nerima.
Morning. How are you?
Yeah. You are the best.
I always seem to be here. And you have a guests. Maybe it's a spiritual thing. I need to do like maybe I need like a cleansing or something. I don't understand.
Either you need a cleansing or the place.
I don't know. Because what is that? This is the second time. If it happens 3 times. Sasa kuna kitu hapo. There's something there.
Yeah. Tabidu umetafuta nyota yako. Kama una nyota ya company. It's only that I cannot be absent. It seems like nyota yako ya company. So you might have to go out and look for your nyota. But you've been well?
I've been well. Mm-hmm. A bit busy, but to be busy is good in this economic time. Yeah.
And I'm happy. Of course, the last time I saw you in your event. You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
So what has been cooking there?
We just launched a new strategic plan. So now it's for 2023 to 2027. And we've kicked off our sports tournaments. So we have a lot of dialogues in sports tournaments in the counties. So we were in Homa Bay and Kitui over the weekend, Busia yesterday. And so it's going to be Nairobi next week. Okay. So a lot of activities are happening.
Indeed, but I'm not involved. So you're saying you even launched your strategic plan, me as your biggest partner.
I know. I didn't do well with that invitation list. I did not. But I promise I'm going to send you an invitation to the office and we are definitely going to do some activities together.
Okay. All right, guys, when you join in, please when we get to know that you're watching us, and other please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. When you join in, please when we get to know that you're watching us. And after please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This is the tackle, the Sheria Wiki edition of the 12th of May 2023. And it begins right now. Will you understand the school?
Yes, Nilienda.
Tuombe.
Oh, Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for this day that you have given us. We cannot take it for granted. We ask you, Lord, that you may go before us, especially as we work. May you be in the foundation of everything that we do. We pray for your protection, and we ask that you also cover our family members. We give you the glory and we give you the honor. For it's in Jesus' name we believe and pray.
Amen. Thank you so much. So the biggest conversations, of course, that have been going on this week. One is about the bipartisan talks that seems to have stalled, and both sides are pulling their noses. All right. As Emir is saying, if you don't start the talks, we are going to bolt out. And Kenya Kwanza is saying, we are ready for the talks. It's you who is not coming into the table. And they're saying also, well, if you want to have the talks on your terms, then it's not going to be possible. Another story, of course, has been the Shakaola stories continues. And there's been the issues of regulation of churches, how to regulate church activities. That's another conversation as well that has been running this week. And pia kuna grapevine, I don't know if it's girlfriend or now. There is another story. Adam Duale has told us how Steve Kalonzo lost the chance at the presidency because of why? Indecisiveness in 2013. Well, I don't know if you've looked at that book.
No, I haven't.
I bet you have not. But anyway, that's a common story. What has been
about Kalonzo?
It's not new. About Kalonzo. Another story, of course, the finance bill. The finance bill goes to parliament. There has been issues that have been raised by the political class and also the wananchi who are saying, no, ushuru ikoju. There's a VAT on fuel, 16% VAT on fuel. That seems to be coming back as well. There are several other taxes. There's housing levy, and the housing, they have now said it's a saving program. So we also look at that. Are you ready to own a home via the government? government mortgage. All right. So in another story, there's been the story of pension. So there's an MP, GG, Kagombe was gone to Parliament, tabled a motion in Parliament that Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka should refund the pensions they have received because they have been active in politics. Say retirement pensions are people who have retired, not who are still around. All right, so we get to look at that as well. But meanwhile, Mungalito continue. Good morning. Tuning in from United Kingdom, Confederate United Kingdom, good to be part of this morning's Sheria Wiki edition. Asante sana. Makan Job Ndiwa, good morning, JB. Good morning to you, my brother. Good to see you. K. Patrick, good morning from Upper Hill, Nairobi, the Tackle Editing. Good morning. Sheila Wanja Nekesa, tuned in from 032, blessed all. Asante sana, good to see you. Mego Msani, good to see you, Msani. Koske Salimia Nerima Wako. Nerima, into Nerima, si Nerima Wako. Grafin watching from Jakarta, and I have Sheria issues. Ebu tuambie Sheria issues zako ni gani? Musabi Ken, good morning from Nakuru. Good morning to you. Watu wa Nakuru, mambo vipi? Guys, good morning, and I hope you keeping well. Let's look at the newspaper headlines very quickly. Daily Nation changes. Government already planning privatization of at least 10 state companies this year. It was dream team in rich state farms. Rastatal CEOs and chairs looking in at Patrick Njoroge, I think, which one is this? Anyway. So that's it on Daily Nation. I cannot see very clearly. Now union demands pay for junior high teachers. All workers must pay housing fund, declares president. Kila mtu atalipia nini? Nyumba. Lazima upate nyumba. Upendo spende, you must get a house. Whether you get me or ndek me. 3% you must pay. You know, Kenya very funny. Serikali inasema give us 3%, we find how you're going to own a home. Anasema hapana, no way. Lakini pastor anasema tupe 10% ubarikiwe na nyumba.
Na wanalipa.
Na wanatoa fungu la
10. Irony. Irony.
Kabisa. Look at the Business Daily. Fact of the matter is that most what we have are zombie banks only surviving because of regularity, forbearance by Central Bank Kenya. Okay, that's an intelligence story. Rich Kenyans get helicopter tax cuts in Ruto budget plan. Where? Bill scraps import declarations, fee, VAT and railway levy. Kenyans bought 726 aircraft last year. Akinani. Where? Wakenya walinunua 726 aircraft last year peke yake. Lazima unasema hakuna pesa, sema tu mimi mwenyewe sina pesa. Unaanza unasema mimi nani, unasema jina yako na hapa ya kwamba sina pesa. Usiingize watu wengine kwa shida zako. People have money. Aviation Boniface Otieno and Dominic Omondi, that's the story on Business Daily. Wealthy Kenyans and politicians will import helicopter and planes at cheaper prices after President William Ruto's administration proposed to scrap through taxes on aircraft and parts at a time the Treasury plans to hit the middle class with higher fuel and salary taxes to fund the shillings 3.59 trillion budget. In the Finance Bill 2023, the government proposes to exempt importers of aircraft, especially choppers, from paying the 16% valued added tax VAT, while scrapping the 3.5% import declaration fee, IDF, and 2% railway development levy. So in short, it's easier now to buy an helicopter than to buy a car. So Mkenya tafadhali mahali ulipo, wacha kununua gari, nunua helicopter. Hakuna tax VAT, hakuna import declaration, hakuna railway levy. Well, so let's all fly. Very good news right there. Earnings, M-Pesa deepens share in Safaricom revenue as voice status. The share of M-Pesa in Safaricom mobile service revenue has deepened to 41.5% as earning from voice and messaging came under pressure and applications such as WhatsApp. Excuse me, napigiana simu na WhatsApp sana, Safaricom inalia hasara. Safaricom's mobile service revenue in financial year ended March 2023 grew by 4.6% to 292.32 billion. With M-Pesa accounting for 117.19 billion for 41.5% compared with 39.9% in the previous year. Fuliza revenue falls to shillings 4.9 billion of reduction of fees. Okay, revenue pia hapo. Fuliza Kenya shoots itself in the foot and in war on plastic pollution. Kenya government is on a backpedaling mission against its own campaign against plastic bags following a proposal to impose excess duty on imports, giving local manufacturers fighting chance to survive production. Everready directors resign as new investor is awaited. If you remember Everready Paka Power. Now, here's the story. I know Nerima had not been born.
No, I remember.
Everready Paka Power? What was it?
Batteries. They were red with a black cat.
But also blue ones.
No, they were.
There were also blue ones, there were black, there were yellow ones.
Are you confusing me?
I'm just telling
serious?
you, different.
But am I correct?
Yeah, you are correct about that. It was battery. They were batteries. But the colors is debatable. There are different colors though. But yes, red was there.
Okay.
Red East Africa's chairperson Lucy Waithaka and 2 other directors have resigned from batteries distributor amid widening losses. So there was a factory in Naikoro. Ukifika hapa Naikoro na kulikuwa never ready ilifungwa. Lakini so batteries have been coming from Egypt. Battery imekuwa ikiletwa kutoka Egypt. Okay? It will be coming from Egypt. Seems I've lost my papers again. Nerima, what are you doing with my papers? Okay. All right, let's look at the People Daily. Revealed intrigues in Kibaki succession. Duale tells all as a race for State House 2013 get at pace. Uhuru announced he would sacrifice his ambition and back Mudavadi, but his and Ruto's allies worked behind the scenes to scuttle the deal. A new book by defense says Azimio cracks whip against rebel senators. Azimio mambo imechamka pale kidogo. Page 6, Minority Leader Ole Kina tells Speaker the opposition has kicked out 5 Jubilee and ODM legislators from Senate committee because there are close ties with Ruto administration as Jubilee splinter groups allied to Kanini Kega protest against the ouster. The senators who faced Tomoji and Fatuma Dulo, James Lomalen, Abdul Haji, Joseph Kamau, Margaret Kamar. Kidogo hapo. Future of filming in Africa is bright. High cost of polls. It's out ad. Ice Tex Agora and FC set to face off Mashemeji and Sunday Derby. Okay. On the Star, major split in Ruto Raila talk agenda. Azimio list audit of 2022 presidential election serve a rising cost of living as part of its agenda. I don't know if you've seen the demands that have been paid by Azimio, right? Mm-hmm. Major split in Ruto Raila talks agenda. Contentious president's team once demos regulated and bombers chaos revisited. Siasa, why Jubilee power struggles may leave Mount Kenya exposed. Okay, why Uhuru's fate as Jubilee boss now lies with registrar Kimani, murder style Joey. How I accidentally shot myself over text message. Okay, the plot keeps sticking. Preach water, drink wine. Mackenzie police want to starve me to death. Hey. Sauti Sol, sign up, prepare for a big night with Boys to Men. You have your ticket to Boys to Men?
No, I don't.
Should have said early. Anyway, so the one of Boys to Men. In other news, also Mackenzie anasema tafadhali serikali saidia tunakufa njaa. Anasema mmekufa njaa. Being starved to death in jail. Taifa Leo, mazungumzo ya Kenya Kwanza Azimio sasa yaanza. Wabunge wafikiana kuhusu masuala kadhaa baada ya vuta ni kuvute Interpasul kuhusu finali pale UEFA. Imeweka hali ya tumaini ya kushinda kombe la UEFA katika tangu mwaka 2010. Ugali wasagaji nafaka wasema magala ya mahindi hayana chakula hicho kwa sasa. Ugali kusidi kwa gali. Chakula matumaini ya Wakenya kununua unga ya bei nafuu yaendelea kufifia baada ya wasagaji unga kusema hawana mahindi ya kutosha. Chama cha wasagaji nafaka chasema wakulima wadogo wanaidai serikali zaidi ya shilingi milioni 500 na hawana pesa za kuagiza nafaka kutoka nje. Habari kwenye ukurasa wa pili wa Taifa Leo. Wageni kutuzwa naibu rais Rigathi Gachagua kushoto na balozi wa Uingereza nchini Jane Marriott kati na gavana wa Mandera Mohamed Hadan Khalif katika hoteli ya Rasida kaunti ya Mandera jana wakati wa kutia saini kwa mkataba wa mradi wa usalama mpakani wa Kenya, Somalia na Ethiopia. Haya, dhambi za Yesu wa Tongaren kulingana na maafisa wa polisi. Yesu wa Tongaren sasa amefikishwa mahakamani. Unjirani wa Nerima huko nyumbani amefikishwa korokoroni. Alisema kwamba mwakili wake anajua na mwezi. Aliibia polisi simu kituoni kuhukumiwa. Mwanaume mwenye miaka 40 aliiba simu ya afisa wa polisi katika kituo cha polisi Nairobi. Anasubiri hukumu baada ya kukiri mashtaka. Kwa hivyo umeshikwa uko ndani alafu unaibia polisi simu. Okay. Haya, maandalizi ya mazishi ya shujaa yashika kasi. Wanakijiji wafurahia kunufaika na vibarua vya kuandaa mazishi ya Mukami Kimathi. It's very interesting. You say that there are a lot of things that can happen to you, but the problem is you have to die first. Yeah? People have a lot of good things to say about you. People have very good things to do for you. I mean, there are a lot of beautiful things that can happen for you, but the condition is kwanza kufa. Kufa kwanza, tafadhali kufa kwanza. Kufa kwanza. Haya. Natakia familia pole, wale sana kwa familia ya Mukami Kimathi, familia mzima ya Mukami. You want to pass our sincere condolences to the family. Rest in eternal peace. And I think we need to start asking ourselves the question, have we done enough justice to people who have done so much for this country? I think that's where we started off from. But before you go to that, kama ni mkulima, hakikisha kama unapata chakula ya mifugo yako kutoka Fugo Feeds ama Unga Farm East Africa Limited. We keep telling you this, that when you get animal feeds from Fugo, you're not only guaranteed of the quality in terms of nutritional formulation, but also the safety of the feeds for your animals. Many farmers complain about feed poisoning. We're guaranteeing you that the technology and the level of carefulness and production discipline that is put into producing Fugo feeds ensures that your animals are very safe from any type of feed poisoning, and also ensure that you have the best balance and nutritional value for your animals that guarantees you value at the market. So hakikisha kama unapata chakula ya Fugo feeds kutoka Unga Farm East Africa Limited. Pia nakupa nafasi ya kuweza kujishindia gunia 50 kg bag of Fugo layer, full layer, complete layer feeds. Ukiniambia kwa nini nikupe, naambia ukitumia hizo products, and also tell me, I want you to send me a video of you feeding your chicken with any Fugo feeds products, and tell me what benefits you've been able to get since you started feeding them with those feeds. So please rush to the nearest agrovet that is authorized. Usiende huko ununue maajabu alafu kuja kuniambia hapa tununua fake feeds. Be sure that you're buying it from authorized feed companies or feed distributors, that's agrovets, so that you can get the best value and safe products for your animals. All right, Nerima, what have you learned from the death of Mukami Kimathi?
From the death, it's that it took government such a long time to renovate her homestead. Concerned that we will not have the remains on time of Dedan Kimathi. And it's unfortunate that a family that has done so much for the history of Kenya is forgotten so quickly, considering that we didn't gain independence a long time ago. It's not over 70 years. It's very recent. So it's also a reality that people who were involved in the process are now beginning to fade off. And we haven't done enough justice to collect that history and to pass it down to younger generations. I think that's what I see.
All right. Have you done enough justice to those people who sacrificed?
No, we haven't.
Why have you not?
Because we haven't lived to the promises that we fought for. You know, when I think about, reading, especially how we had the state of emergency in 1952, and how people took it upon themselves for the independence of this country. And not just Mau Mau. There were also other tribes organizing in their little small areas as well. But we can't even name several. Sometimes you'll think of Mekatilili Menza, or you'll mention some people in history, but our youth don't know them. Our children don't know them. But then as soon as you start to talk about the history of maybe ANC in South Africa or the British Empire, we can even go as far back as the Scramble for Africa in 1888. Or even how, people went to England to basically negotiate for power with Tom Mboya and all that. But our history itself is forgotten. Even the fact that Jomo Kenyatta had to meet with Nakuru farmers who were all white in the White Highlands and, negotiate because they were afraid that, if you're coming into power, that means I will not have my farm, you will kill me. And him telling them, no, not necessarily. But those of you who want to live, you can. And a lot of that land didn't go to the right people. And those are the things that we don't talk about. And that's how you have few families with a lot of land, and the distribution is unfair, and there was no reward for many. And that's how you still have Mau Mau fighting for their rights, even through the British government, and winning cases as recently as 5 years ago, is something that we haven't done well.
All right. So I don't know what you guys think. Have we done enough justice to the people who vote for independence? But Graf is saying, but all the Mama were paid by the British. Okay.
So by the British. Yeah, but very late. When was that?
Lakini kitu muhimu nalipewa pesa. Hiyo pesa iko wapi?
Yeah, but even if it's by the British, our own government, like here we are, when our leaders retire, we give them retirement pensions and packages. Our own government, once we gained independence, should have done the same for those who fought for the independence of this country and their families. I look at them as at the same level. And our government hardly recognizes them. The fact that Mukami is getting a state funeral function, okay, but I think it's a lot very late. I think the recognition should have been for decades and continuous. And that's the only way we can continue to teach our children to instill that sense of patriotism. That's why we don't have patriotism. We don't. Right now, if you ask a young person, if you get work in this country, are you going to go? They will go with immediate effect. Because if you look at the way this country treats young people, it treats them like crap. Because even when you look at this NHIF right now, okay, they are bringing it down, the minimum contribution to those employed to 300 and something. But unemployed are paying 1,000. You unemployed, you're paying 1,000 as the minimum. Okay, so where are you supposed to get the 1,000?
And the majority are actually unemployed.
Yeah, they're mainly youth. So even sometimes when you look at some of the laws around young people and regulation, young people can really feel like this country really doesn't like me. They really don't want me to be a part of the growth of this country. So if I leave, it's even better out there. I have a better chance, I have a better opportunity. It's easier to survive in Kenya when you have some standing, some sort of finance to be able to have capital, to be able to do something. But even for small businesses right now, it's very difficult.
Okay. All right. Grafin, are Mau only from Central Kenya?
No. It's an unpopular opinion.
Actually, Ojwang has said that several times. He was here last week and he also said the same thing.
No.
Mau was not only from Central Kenya, it was a movement.
Yes, it was. It was.
I'm
upset.
Why?
Okay, I'm upset about it because it's a narrative that has been instilled in our history. Because, history is about who is telling the story. And I think Wangari Maathai covers it very well in her book Unbowed, where she talks about this sense of, especially Kikuyus, talking to generations, how important your land is and how it was important to fight for that land. And her having to step back and actually do research and study that it was not just about the Kikuyu. And also the fact that there's a sense of, she calls it entitlement, where because you feel you fought, then it is yours to remain. The way the country is run, the way the country is governed, and you will always be in that leadership. And she said it took quite a bit of introspection for herself as a Kikuyu and realizing that this has been part of her upbringing and the fact that even it's a family think. Everyone around you thinks this way. And having to step back from that. Not a lot of people do that in terms of studying your upbringing and seeing maybe there are certain perspectives and perceptions that I have about things because of how I've been brought up. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It doesn't. So I think it's good that we continue to have these conversations that yes, it was a movement. And at the same time, there were many other things happening, including the formations of political parties. And even in Kisumu, there was a lot going on. In Mombasa, the coastline, there was a lot going on. But then we don't hear about it as much. And it's also because Mau Mau was close to the capital. It was close to Nairobi. So obviously, strategically, you would hear much more about that.
All right. Okay. So umesema vizuri. Okay. Yeah. Kabon Sarah, so awkward to do renovations in Mukami dead when Mukami is dead. No Juma. Do good to someone when he or she is alive. Shame, 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 shame. It's not mocking the family leaders in Kenya. Style up. Sarah Kabon from Eldoret, good to see you. Asante sana. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you guys. Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for making this the biggest conversation in the country. Musa Keben, good morning from Nakuru. Good to see you. Keep Victor, good morning. Gerald Bitok, good morning. Governor Sam, I have addressed the issues in your WhatsApp, or do you change the number? The WhatsApp is still the same, so you just send your WhatsApp messages. Okay, we'll look at them. The governor Sam, there's a narrative that Jomo Kenyatta wasn't a Mau Mau fighter. But I mean, it's not a narrative, it's a fact. He denied Mau Mau several times, actually.
That is true.
He denied Mau Mau several times, so it's not grapevine. It's story, it's history, and I think we need to start reteaching our history. Some level of that we feed on different in history that is not true. Arab Malchora, good morning, Gerald, and good morning to you. We're doing well. Alex Wanyandarua watching from Munyaka, Eldoret. Rombo Eldoret, Mambo VP. Asante sana. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Danson Kinywa, good morning, GB. Good morning to you, Danson, and I hope you doing well. All right, Nerima, you are talking about there are some young people have been screaming around that they have not been paid. Leona Mbeba mabango ya haki yetu.
Haki yetu.
What's going on?
There's an interesting case happening in Kenya right now, and a lot of Kenyans are unaware, but I don't blame them because there's been a bit of a downplay in terms of the media. But maybe a few months ago, a young man called Daniel Mwatung from South Africa was working in Kenya. Okay. And when Meta, Facebook, they hire like third-party companies to basically do the content moderation work. So what's content moderation? You know, when you're on Facebook and you see community guidelines, you know, and you maybe see an image that is very graphic and gory, there's that aspect of where you can report, or it shows you that this might be sensitive graphic. So it's someone's job to basically sit down and look at all this terrible content coming in, and it's their job to flag it and say, no, this content is very, very bad. It needs to be removed from the platform. Okay.
So there are people who sit down.
There are people who sit down, and there are not a few. There are like over 200 employees.
In Kenya?
Yes, but they cover different countries. So the issue that we have with content moderation, you can have up to 5 people looking at the whole of Kenya's content. It is impossible. Ethiopia, the same. Namibia, for instance, there's only one individual who looks over the whole country and looks at the content. But this is the thing. A lot of them are young. They come in.
How do you do it? You look at the accounts.
Yes, you're given access now from the back end. So when someone posts, their job is to look at it, and then if it's too gory, they remove it. But then because content moderators are too few, that's how you're finding a lot of content in the public. We have been able to see suicides. We've been able to see decapitated heads or dismembered body parts. That shouldn't be on our platform. Someone's job is to flag it and remove it before the public sees it. But because the content moderators are too few, a lot of this content ends up getting into the public systems. And a lot of times when these guys apply for this job, they think they are applying for something like customer service. I mean, the contract, first of all, you'll see a job, you apply for it, you think it's customer service, then you sign a contract, then you find out, Allah, kumbe I work for Meta. So there's a lot of that. And a lot of them have issues of post-traumatic stress disorder. Because by the time you're seeing these things, can you imagine if you're seeing cannibalism? They have seen people eat people, okay? And someone is recording it and put it on Facebook. They have seen those things. And then there's no aspect of counseling. There's no training. But you're told this is your job. So Daniel, now the guy from South Africa that I was talking about, he decided, let me form a union because I don't think this is right. We have very crazy working conditions. We overwork. We're not paid well. And then this stuff we're doing, we were not warned about. It was not even in the contract. And so when he tried to form a union, he was fired. Okay. And so after being fired now, other young people saw that, hey, no,
so
Daniel
fired by Meta itself
right.
or agencies?
No,
or
the agency.
Okay.
So Daniel is one of the first people to actually take Meta to court in Africa. And he took it to court here in Kenya because the office is here in Kenya. Okay. And it has been a case that has been ongoing for a while. And so far, about 184 people were now terminated. And the courts basically said, while the case is still going on, these agencies should still pay these people. They are not allowed to be fired and terminated while the case is going on. But these guys haven't been paid. So last week, they did a sit-in at one of the agency's offices, and they sat down there with the court order that basically said they're supposed to be paid their salaries. Because, you have to remember, a number of them are illegal immigrants. They don't have work permits. Okay. A lot of them have young families, and they can't afford rent, and they can't afford basic needs. So yesterday, again, the court said that these guys should be paid. And the thing I'm saying that Kenyans don't know that this is happening and it's a real issue. We have a government that is pushing to digitize everything. The solution, digital, Wi-Fi hotspots, digital, everything is digital, okay? But yes, we're talking about big tech companies, Facebook, Meta, Google, Zoom. But these guys are going to be employing these young people that you're pushing to do digital work. So when you're seeing things like Talenta Hela, and they are pushing to have, creative content creators, what we're not seeing is that big tech companies are taking advantage of non-existing laws. Because now
there's no framework.
There's no framework. Now with these youth, now where are they? They're under which union? Because they're not Kenyan. They're not Kenyan, so they can't be protected by any labor union. I mean, Atwoli can't come and say, hey, give these people their pay. Who are they to him? He doesn't recognize them. And then when you have these big tech companies, they have a headquarter in the US, and then they hire these small companies to now come into Africa, and then they have pseudonyms and employ people under which laws? So people now are working without permits, basically working under the law illegally, and then you're not taxing them. When you're not taxing Meta, and they're saying, oh, but we employ people. When you look at how many they employ, how much they pay them, and how much they pay in tax, they make billions a year. So for me, this is a very easy solution, Instead of overtaxing the Kenyan citizen, there are big tech companies that make billions out of Kenyan citizens, from not just content moderators to content creators. You are a content creator yourself. So what can our government do to hold them more accountable? We are not looking at them. And I think that's going to be the future of work, especially for young people. Not all of them are going to be able to get work in an office and work in the informal sector. But digitally, online, they might. But here they are already being taxed. Is it 10% or 15%? They're already being 10%. They're already being taxed.
15.
When did you tax Meta? When did you tax TikTok? And how much are you taxing them? That is silent. So for me, I think that's a part that the administration needs to look at, and it's an opportunity because our generation, our population is young at 19. This is the marketplace for them. This is it. They are not going to be looking in the US or in their companies, where they come from, their countries, because those populations are older. So you want a young population that is digital, always online. How can you capitalize on that?
All right. There's an advice here from Graphene is saying, international labor organizations have this framework. They can join ILO. So maybe you'll advise them.
Yes.
Gerald Kayura, ujambo. Gerald Bitok na mgeni wako leo. Asante sana. Natazama moja kwa moja kutoka Uholanzi nikielekea Mboka. Yani kwaso. Lopa, I'll keep up with the discussion mpaka mwisho. Asante sana. Thank you so much, Alpha Moland, for joining us this morning. All right. So that is it. Watu vijana walipwe. Lakini sasa unasema ni foreigners. Kwani kuna Wakenya
Wakenya wako kama 10. They are there out of the 150.
Out of 200 only 10.
Because Bitok, this is the headquarters for Africa. Yeah. Africa headquarters is in Nairobi.
Right.
Yeah, but Kenyans are there. But they need to hire more Kenyans.
Hapo ndio sasa niko pia. So wakisema pia hata mimi nasema walipo hire more Kenyans. I'm all right. What's your feel of the nation? What's the state of the nation?
Honestly, I've been avoiding the news because
you think news is going to avoid you because you've avoided it.
I know the news will still get to me. The reality is that it's still, but I find like a peace of mind. I've been avoiding it. I just feel like it's so much.
It's like closing your eyes so you cannot see the sun. It's still there.
Me, let me tell you, if I'm scared of something on the dark, I close my eyes. Like I know it's still there, but I feel like I'm more secure if I don't see it. But there's just been so much on the news in just a few days. It's like this tax, that tax, change that. Mother, it's fake beards. Your beard is real.
You can touch them.
Fake beards. I don't even know how you can have
touching is believing.
Fake eyebrows. I'm not sure how you can have fake eyebrows.
There are many fake eyebrows.
I don't think so, Bitok.
You're around with girls. You've seen enough fake eyebrows.
I know people tattoo their eyebrows, but I don't know. Anyway, so I just
fake lashes.
Lashes is true. And I know people who can pay up to 20,000 for lashes.
And now even there are also fake beards.
Yeah.
So
fake beards is a thing. People have fake beards.
No, I've not seen beards. I've seen beards.
Oh.
Fake beards.
But by then there are billboards about like liposuction these days. Kuna moja hapo James Gishuru. And I remembered looking at it, I'm like, who is paying for this? Wow. Anyway, so
people are paying for it. Actually, the biggest market is women. Women are very gullible actually
in
for
Kenya.
all these things. Yes. You've not seen a lot of people doing this.
I know, but maybe it's also where I am. Also, I'm not in that. Is it socialite space? I'm not in it, so maybe.
But you're in Kenya. Are you trying to say I'm in the socialite space?
That one has different news from my space. There's a whole other life and lifestyle. But the state, I feel, it's overburdening. I think that there's just too much going on, and there's always something new about something I have to pay. Okay. But I am glad that the conversation on Mandamano has sort of mellowed for the next few days. So hopefully the committee will find, or the council will find some solutions within the 30 days that we've had with the time frame from the Azimio side, although we know Kenya Kwanza wanted a longer period to work with. So for me, I would say I hope to hear less about how we are going to be paying more, but that's not the reality. We're going to be paying a lot more.
Right. Talking about paying a lot more and talking about taxes. Now, there's a statement by Njuguna Ndongo, who is a CS, and he's saying Kenya among East African countries. Kenya is among East African countries with low tax rates. Adds Finance Bill 2023 proposal are meant to align with regional nations. According to the CS Treasury, Njuguna Ndongo, nyinyi mnalipa ushuru kidogo sana compared to other countries around East Africa. Yes, and kwa hivyo they're saying now we need to align with other countries. Our taxes are very low. Yes, very, very low. So we need to align with other countries and ensure that you are paying sufficient taxes. So the tax bill, of course, 2023, the finance bill 2023 has come in. I don't know, have you gone through it?
Not all of it, some of it, yes. And we've already submitted for the NHIF one. The finance bill, I've had people discuss it, and we're working on submitting some recommendations and opinions on it.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you picked up?
I think you talked about it earlier in terms of, is it being called the housing levy? It's an interesting conversation because I'm, for one, don't own a house. And I've debated. In fact, I've had conversations at home in terms of, can I afford this thing? Because I have an older brother who is maybe 15 years older than me. He owns a house. He pays mortgage. And he's been doing it for 8 years now. And he's just now finished, completed, and that house is his. And it's in Athi River. But just watching him sacrifice to do that, and he's a man with a family with 3 kids. Hey, it's not been easy. I'm just looking at him, I'm like, hey, can I manage? And he's very disciplined. I mean, he's the firstborn of our family. So it's taking another level of an individual to be able to own a house. I don't think it's like the way my parents had it, because they married young, and then the house they moved into is the house I was raised in, and they lived there for 30 plus years. And so it's something that they did as a commitment together. But I also recognize the differences in the economy because, my mother was a stay-at-home mom with us. And so my father did that with his salary. There is no way I can afford a mortgage on one. There's no way. On one salary, there's no way. So we are talking about not even 2 salaries, maybe 4, because you have to do the side hustle, as well. So for me, that one is interesting because I'm just like, I don't think I want to own a house.
Why don't you want to own a house?
It's expensive. And then I'm just like, what's the reality? Okay, I want a house. Okay, so I'm told, every responsible citizen works hard and then they buy a house. I'm like, okay. And then another thing that's so Kenyan is you buy land. Okay, but what am I doing with that land? Because land is important to us because you need to figure out where am I going to be buried. Land is important to us because you need to figure out where am I going to retire. If I can answer those 2 questions without necessarily buying my own property, do I need them?
Okay. So how do you answer it then?
For me, actually, I think rent can work for some people because I think that the economy that we're in right now, buying a house is insane. Apartments in Nairobi themselves, they're going for like 10 million, and those are the cheap ones. But then if you're looking at a 1-bedroom somewhere in Athi, maybe you can get it for 4.5 million. So I've done my homework. I've looked. But also the reality of it, I can see it being a very far reality for many people. And so for me, that housing levy is like, what if I don't want a house? I don't want to buy a house. But then the way they're saying it, it's like it's for all of us. But we're like, okay, but we're not a socialist country where, you tell us education is free, food is free, health is free, housing is free. So none of us pay rent. We all just move into our house. We get born, we get registered, and we're placed in a house. That's not the way we live. We live in a capitalist economy. So I think there's a lot of gaps around that because there's also the clause that says if you make this payment and it doesn't benefit you, you can claim those resources back. I'm like, what is the reality of that happening? It's not possible. And also what I see within that is when they're talking about, okay, fine, we increase, taxes based on salary. Okay, that I'm for it because if you have a higher salary, okay, your taxes are different so that not everybody is paying the same amount. But for me, I think the bigger question Kenyans need to ask is, what are you planning to do with that money? We've had scandals of up to 1.1 billion being lost in NHIF, for instance, 400 million going missing. So scandals are just glaring. But then you have a government that says, guys, we're not even taxing you a lot. You should be glad. Us, we should be saying, okay, fine. If it's not a lot, show us what you're going to do with that money. There's no clear plan. There's no proper framework. We saw how the housing plan failed in the previous administration. In fact, we were wondering how it's being done like a lottery. I mean, how is this based on luck? And we're seeing how urban planning is an important issue in Nairobi. So the issues are there, but then the solutions are not clear. So I think for me, people would have more trust in paying tax if they saw the services these taxes produce. So countries that have very high tax, like Denmark or Portugal, even when you look at their way of living, the services that are provided, you understand why your taxes are high. I have access to healthcare, I have free education, I have great housing, I have social security nets. And I'm not here disturbing an MP to help me for a healthcare bill or a funeral, or I'm not disturbing my family members to be able to do this. So as long as we see that, I think Kenyans will have trust, but also in the same breath, when government is asking for more money from us, they need to be showing us, okay, the president just came back from Netherlands, from seeing the king. How large was his entourage? We saw him praying, in Israel. How large was his entourage? I don't even have to know the specific numbers, but I can tell you for free now I am 110% sure it was larger than it needed to be. I can tell you that with confidence. So,
how many was it supposed to be?
Even, I don't think they should even pass 10. Do you really need...
So how many were they?
I'm sure they were over 60. I'm sure.
Did you count?
I am sure.
Oh, are you sure?
I am sure. Because let me tell you something. Okay, this is a bit of the by the way. So there's this huge meeting that normally happens in New York for CSW for women. Do you know, people like me who do work in the sector, we couldn't get space. Do you know how it feels to be told you're supposed to be in a panel, you've been invited by another country, your country is also there. I mean, this is a state function. And then you're told, oh, your country is the one that has to sponsor you to come. The way this meeting happened. I know at least 10 young people who don't work in government or, someone's PA or someone's whatever, who couldn't get space. Because a lot of these meetings will have maybe 100, 120, 50 plus people who you're even wondering what they are doing there. But they're just going there to take pictures and shop.
Instagram.
And just show that, hey, me, I'm out of the country.
I'm in New York.
I am in New York. So I think that if the government took it more seriously, how they are doing their foreign trips, because every time the president goes out, he comes back and says, I've brought opportunity for the youth. I've signed this deal. We're doing business with this country. He'll go and talk about business. But in the same breath, he's double speaking. Because as he's talking about business, he's now overspending money over here to go and do that business. Is it really making sense?
But on the issue of housing, now statistics say that over 60% of Kenyans, especially in urban cities, live in informal settlements. Over 60%. And if there is one reality that most of us probably learned during COVID-19 is the value of having a home. If you can remember what exactly happened during that time. People were not able to pay rent. In fact, landlords were foregoing their rent payments. And imagine if you're a landlord and you're also paying mortgage, and then you're foregoing rent on a tenant who is in there. It's also a burden on you. So for me, I think the issues of housing is very critical from a very personal perspective. And these are lessons that sometimes you really learn very hard way. There are people whose lives have never changed from COVID because they were kicked out of homes, they went back up country, and then they're getting back their voting. It's been difficult to do that because now even the things have not improved. If you're doing business, things have not really improved on the business front, or maybe there are companies that close shop and people were unemployed. So if there's one greatest reality that Kenyans probably learned during COVID-19 is the value of having a roof over your head. That nobody's knocking at your door. Right?
That is true.
Hata ukifungiwa na COVID, bare minimum you look for food. Kikiumana sana kula tu chakula, but at the end of the day, there's nobody who's coming to knock in. So I don't know if this is a solution enough, but I think the issues of housing is a very critical conversation that we must start to have. And when you look at the way the ecosystem operates, it feels more like 1963. More young people are relocating to cities and towns. And the capacity to house them is still very low. And the cost of housing, by the way, over 60% of Kenya's income and salary is going to rent. I'm sure you can tell that. If you calculate the rent that you pay out of your income, it surpasses 60 to 70% of that cost of that income. So if there is a way that we can have more homes and more flexible times in terms of rent, then more availability of homes, then even the cost of mortgage goes down. The cost of housing probably would go down. The cost of rent would go down. I'm not sure about the cost of building materials. But then again, it's an investment that probably you recoup in many years to come. But I think the issues on conversation on housing is a conversation that we must begin to have. We must really begin to have. Whether this is a solution is a story for another day. You know? But I think the issues on, because many people have asked is, what if I don't want a home? Or is housing a crisis for me? It is actually a crisis. It's a crisis for most of us. And you would not know it until you're 2 months rent. You are 2 months salary off. Wacha salary yako ichelewe 2 months ndio utajua kumbe unakuanga homeless.
But you know, Bitok, a lot of people, especially people who have struggled with housing, they are not living alone. People these days now rent rooms, you know, and even share, right?
But then again, that tells them to the crisis of housing.
Yes. So for me, I believe then that is a crisis for a certain level of people. What I'm saying is, in this particular finance bill, they're talking about also taxing the landlords. And they've also introduced that taxing of agents. So now agents who collect rent are being taxed. And they have to upload it onto a system every 24 hours. Like, there are some things which they're not making sense to me. Like, the way the bill is written, it is focusing so much on collecting and really very little on producing. Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I think it's important. And housing, a place, basic needs, clothing, shelter, and food is important. But if we have an administration that is not giving us the services or answering to the question of how, we're going to find ourselves collecting a lot of money, the same way with Huduma number, which I never ever signed up for, no matter how many times we were threatened that, oh, if you don't, you won't have access to services. Because I know my right. It is impossible to take away services from me as a citizen of this country. So that process in itself, because Kenyans refused to ask questions but chose to be forced to line up. We spent 10 billion. We spent 10 billion on a card we do not use today. And as I speak, the government has now changed it into another name. And now they are registering people again. And we're wasting resources again. And babies are being registered under this. I think it's called an IUD number now.
Babies are being born again.
Yeah. So for me, I'm just like, no. Guys, we've been through this circle. Yeah, you want the money. I hear you. Yes, there's an issue. I hear you. But then how are you solving the issue? Getting money is not going to solve it. It's like when, I don't know if you have younger siblings. Someone who says, mi nataka kuanzisha biashara. Unataka kufanya? I just need capital of 30K. Unafanya? I just need 30K. They don't even have a plan. Would you give your younger sibling that 30K? Or you would ask, show me the plan. Let me understand the business. Let me see if it makes sense.
But the government has a plan. They're building houses. Which other plan?
It has not done well. It has not done well. There are a lot of houses that we're expecting to be up. People should have been moved in by now, including in Kibra. And we're still seeing a stalling. And people still questioned how these people are going to be placed in that housing. What is the process and the procedure? I will not be surprised if it's people's friends and relatives in those houses. So there are still issues in terms of things that have already processed. But then how can we fix those issues fast before trying to implement something new is my main question.
All right. And I think for me, one of the worries as well in terms of these housing programs is how do you safeguard the ownership to ensure that the right people actually own these homes? Because we're talking about affordable housing, then it's for those people. And the president actually spoke yesterday and he said that the MPs, the leaders and these other guys, they have a mortgage plan from government. And he's saying that he's trying to create a mortgage plan for the hustlers or for the bottom level of the economy. But then again, my biggest question would be, how do we ensure that then that the people who end up owning these properties are actually those hustlers? Because it's even possible that people who end up with these properties are the same politicians because they have the money, the muscles, they can still buy off the houses. And the hustlers also remains just to be tenants and rent payers. So some of the frameworks that maybe the government should look at so they can safeguard the ownership of these homes. But the conversation on housing is very critical. But also our Kenya, like I was saying with Nerima here, if it was a pastor, because I always see pastors here online declaring homes on people and declaring cars. I say, I declare that you'll have your own home this year. And you all rush and say, amen, amen. Amen, pastor. Tumambegu na tumambegu. Because a pastor driving this narrative probably would have been bought. Now you've been asked, save 3% of your income for a possibility to own a home. Uko na shida. Lakini pastor saizi akitokelezea. Pastor Ezekiel akifungua za TV aseme, ndugu dada mahali ulipo, naona unateseka na mambo ya nyumba. Nitumie 10% alafu ubarikiwe na nyumba. You easily send without even thinking twice. So I think sometimes also we don't give very important things critical level of thinking. But well, we could be asking these questions, but then we need to ask them in a progressive way and ensure that you can. But I will encourage every single person, try as much as you can and have a home. It's very critical. I'll tell you that. It's very critical because what happens in Kenya is there's no guarantee of income. That's one thing you need to realize. And there are things that you look at. You look at healthcare. You look at housing. But then most Kenyans are just a disease away from poverty.
Exactly.
Just one. Si hata mbili ugonjwa mbili moja. Just one disease away is enough to just wipe you off and take you to poverty. That's the reality of things. And also, you just 2 incomes away from being homeless. Think about it. If you miss your salary for 2 months and you're not able to pay your rent for 2 months, you're basically homeless. Your landlord will probably kick you out and you'll be on the streets. That is the reality of things as it is in Kenya. And then also, it's more flexible to pay rent. Yes, it's because it gives you the flexibility of choice. You can decide today you want to live in Karen. The next day you want to live in Alingam. You want to live in Lavington. You want to live in whatever. You want to live in Athi River. But if you have a home, you don't have that flexibility of doing things. But then again, at what cost is the flexibility coming with? In Kenya, there's no guarantee of income. There's no way. I can tell you, Nerima, it doesn't matter what you do. You've seen people who, you saw an MP the other day from Western Kenya who was sitting on a block in Kenyatta National Hospital waiting for treatment. There's no guarantee of income in Kenya. There's no guarantee that in the next 10 years you'll still be earning what you're earning today and you'll still be able to pay your rent. So if there's a way you can secure that now, at least ensure that you have a home and you have some level of health care, then it's something that you need to do. Unlike other countries where social services are provided, like you're saying, there's transport, you can move around easily. There's social protection in terms of health care, and that is education. Your children can go to school very easily. But now imagine if you don't have the income that you're having now. You're telling me you're going to take your son to school. Now imagine you cannot go to school, you don't have rent to pay. All these things, all the cost centers that you have as a person cannot be provided for. What is left? Poverty and living in the streets. So I encourage every Kenyan, because of the way it's structured, our economy is structured, and the way our social services are structured, you cannot afford to let some things go. If you can, for those people who can, of course, if you can set aside that money and there's a way you can be guaranteed that you're going to have a home at the end of the day, then well and good. But because again, also it's not realistic. For someone who's earning 30,000, over 80% of Kenyans earn 100,000 and below. Yeah. Actually, over 80% of Kenyan population earn 100 and below. Less than 20% earn 100,000 and above.
Yeah.
So even if you're saving the 3% of 100,000 should be 30,000. Right? 30,000, right?
I don't know math.
Nerima.
I thought you'd be the mathematician.
Just on the way to New York and just came back without
3%. I don't know.
Okay, let's say 30%.
But I think it's 30,000.
30,000. So how many 30,000s are you going to? Because from that structure, a 1-bedroom is going to cost you 2.something million, 2.45. So well, I agree with Nerima that it's a bit unrealistic. But then again, if you can save towards it, if you have to find a way to own a home, please do it. Please do it. You will thank me later. Please do it. Utanishukuru bado utaniambia yenyewe. Ewe Bishop ulisema kitu ya maana sana. Ewe Bishop ulinena kitu ya maana zaidi. If you can own a home, please do it. Because things can get crazy here. I can tell you. Jaribu kukosa kulipa rent 2 months. Jaribu. You tried. Hata sasa kama uko na pesa, Nerima kwa tu kichwa ngumu.
But you see,
Same landlord, you'll know mimi ni Nerima.
I think something that I've done from a very young age is hata kama nilikuwa na 10k or something, I would always put like 1k aside. So when you do that for almost, I've been doing it since 2013. For 10 years, it actually collects because it has been, I think what we need to do is have a security in terms of if there's a savings or something aside, I don't know what you would call it, or maybe it's there, that is not after retirement. It's for when things get thick.
For the rainy days.
Yes, that I can have access to, where I can feel that if I was unemployed for 1 year, by the way, I can survive on this. So I feel that countries that have these particular services available, you are able to have that. But then Kenya, that you're left on your own. Because now for me, when you have a house and then you're jobless, then now you're paying for stima. Because nimeona watu ndani ya manyumba na hawana stima.
Lakini
hawana maji.
Lakini gani ni afadhali zeri uko kwa nyumba bila maji kuliko uko nje. Bila maji na bila stima.
You're still sleeping, you know. I don't know, Bitok. Me, I'm just, because now and then if your house has an issue, alafu maintenance. Now I don't know.
Actually, I've been corrected. It's not even 30,000. Interestingly, it's 3,000.
Oh, okay. Thank you, mathematician.
3% is 3,000. Even makes it worse, man.
Okay.
But these mortgages you will need to pay for 20 years. How about if you lose your sources of income midway? And I've actually had an interaction with the other day. I had an interaction with the Ministry of Housing because they are just trying to understand this conversation on housing and some of the issues that are coming up. Of course, is the habits of Kenyans. The truth is, when you look at the mortgage statistics, there are thousands and thousands of Kenyans, a bigger percentage of Kenyans who have not been able to live through their mortgage. Unalipa nyumba for 20 years and you're supposed to pay mortgage for 25 years. On the 21st year, you lose your income. The bank comes, sells off your asset. So you've been paying for this thing for 21 good years of your life. If you start paying at 40,
that's the thing.
Then you are 61.
That is the thing.
And you're homeless. So the biggest question I've asked from them, of course, is now the guarantee of income in Kenya is very minimal. Most people, so the retirement age is at 52, I think. Retirement age is at 52. If you start paying your mortgage at 30, and you're paying mortgage for 25 years, it means that you'll retire before you finish your mortgage. So what happens? What is a safeguard for this? And what is a mortgage transfer and security for this? So I think we'll have, from next week, we'll have some guys from the Ministry of Housing for them to make us understand really there is perspective on housing. I think they should be starting a campaign around that. Let's get to look at it, tuangalie. But meanwhile, let's know if it makes sense to you. Edwin Deda, the only thing I get to understand about the house plan is the contribution part. All the other things are nyumba, affordable, na hadithi nyinginezo. GB, I'll never stop saying that Ruta never had a plan. Wah. Edu. Aye. Okay. But people also move from town to town in search of jobs. Mostly Vibarua. This housing program is complex. Fellow certified just a scam. This is just an impulse move by the government to resolve budgeting gaps. Okay. Gravin, what would happen for mortgage defaulters? Will they lose load of the premium? Lose their premiums? That's actually the big question. But when they come here, they're coming here next week. I'll try and pull them in. We see what exactly this means. But you're going to have ask, paying for 15 to 20 years to own a house, the current president would not be in power. Kizungumkuti ya Kenya. Najua grafta raikianga na agenda yake. Anakuja sema housing is not part of my agenda. Sasa yeye aanza kusema anataka kujenga kettle tips. The current president will not be in power. What if the next president says he doesn't know about the program? Who the mwananchi ask about this or house? Okay. Moses Kuria was in Jakarta with more than 40 staff from his ministry. Wow. Hello? Certified. Nerima is making sense. This mortgage thing is just depression loading. Now I have realized that getting a V8 L200 will open more doors than a 3-bedroom.
Nunua hiyo gari. If it brings you joy. I'm telling you. Me a house is not... Nimejaribu kufanya hizo maths sioni. I don't know.
The math is not mathing.
It's not mathing.
Sema hiyo L200 naweza fungua mlango zaidi kuliko 3-bedroom house.
Aki amesema ukweli hapo. Watu wakiona na hiyo gari, they'll come to you with business plans.
Mambo inaingia. Winston Churchill, I contend for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up. I was going to simply reduce the cost of building materials, one to determine whether to build or not. Well, and that's also one of my arguments, because I've said I think we need to give Kenyans capacity to build their own homes. Capacity to build.
Unataka kujenga na hatuna mbao. Where are we getting wood? You know, wood is actually also important.
Boss unajenga na chuma.
Ai.
Still, stuck as unasikia wapi? Side na conserve environment. Okay.
Still.
Na conserve environment. Okay. It's going to get up and 3,000 is only 3,000. 3% is 3,000. Ndio Bogwa. Uwezi atiria sababu ipite bwana. Bogwa. Haya. On YouTube, Jane M. Good morning and God bless. Good morning to you, Jane M. Good to see you. Atikas now. Good morning, Gerald. Good morning to you all the way from the UK. Mambo vipi? Atikas now. All these years, kwani where have Kenyans lived? Kwani tulilala juu ya miti? Yeah. The housing is a scam, same as Uduma number, unconstitutional. Someone take this thing to court. Alex 3000 boss. Good morning, Good morning to you, Joanna. Good to see you once again. Because now Kenyans don't want mortgage. If they did, they would go for them. Most Kenyans live on land their family owned. Okay, but the people don't have land. In this Canada, where do you have land unless you move back to the Nene? So let's look at the state of the economy. Of course, we are falling back on our debts. Clearly, they are saying that we have debts which are maturing at a rate of 50 billion every single week. This country pays 50 billion every single week. And President William Ruto said he's not going to borrow to pay salary. So, tuna pesa ya kwanza ikifika, tunalipa deni kwanza. And then we start figuring out how you guys are going to survive. Mutakula nini, mtafanya nini, that vitu zingiane. Now, the cost of governance, of course, has continued to rise. It's continuing to be up there. And it seems like the government doesn't have an option apart from borrowing again, once more, to continue this. What do you think is some of the ways that the government can reduce its spending? I've argued that, and I know this is very unpopular. I've always argued that we never needed counties. For me, you ask me.
So we're still under the same system?
We never needed it, because have we been able to avoid it since it came? We've not. There's no government that has ever been able to afford counties. Every single time it's governors threatening to down tools. And threatening to down tools, not because they cannot pay for roads, they cannot pay for water projects, but they cannot pay salaries.
Yeah,
so in short, we've had counties for over 10 years that are only paying. 7 governments are only paying what? Salaries. The only thing that they're doing is just paying salaries. I don't think that was the spirit of devolution. And if you ask me, I think we are over-ambitious. You know, it's that thing that they say, you're living beyond your means.
Yes, we are.
I think as a country, these issues of devolution was an aspect of us reaching too far, stretching too far, and ending up living beyond our means. And I've said this, if the government is keen about reducing the cost of living and the cost of governance, they should maybe disband counties. That is my gospel as bishop. Disband counties.
Okay, a little drastic. me, I like the counties.
Why?
Because I think that they have unique identities. I think that's important. And if they were governed well, first of all, allocation should count from the county itself. Right now, all the counties still depend on the federal government for their resources. So when they had the formation of the regional economic blocks, the idea was for counties to focus and specialize on goods and commodities that their county is able to produce. We haven't focused heavily on that, for the counties to be self-dependent. That is the issue. And I like devolution. I like devolution a lot because...
do you like it? What has it done?
there's a number of things that I've been able to petition and stop and be involved in, from, health facilities not having drugs to making some health facilities shut down because of access. Me as a citizen, it's enshrined in the Constitution that I am allowed to do that. So I just think that not enough Kenyans are using those platforms enough. In a month, we can submit up to, in my organization, up to 5 petitions in different governments. So, and we have seen the way government has reacted, and they actually come and provide service. Unfortunately, we have a government that has to be spanked. As long as we just let them run loose, they will continue to run loose. The Constitution gave a lot of direct power to the people, but the people are not using that power. A lot of them are unaware of it. But I think what concerns me about this government, you're right. When I hear you say that we're living above our means, that is correct. Because even you with your own budget in your own home, you understand. Like, you can't be spending more than you make. Like, the math will not math in your own house. So why are you doing it with an entire country? And I think it's a bigger conversation that is being had globally, where we're seeing a lot of countries are struggling with the economy. However, Western countries are beginning to really fault China, because if it was a Western country that is giving the loan right now, Western countries are asking Kenya, you're not going to be able to pay this, so we don't know if we should give you the resources. They have started that conversation. But China is one country that is continuing to give and give and give, and they can see it is going to take this country, I don't know how many generations to pay it back. And so when you're seeing conversations about China actually taking infrastructure in terms of payment, that's a concern. I think the larger question here is about our foreign relations and our negotiation skills. Because if, for instance, I know there's a lot of pressure from the West asking China to forgive our loans. Is China going to forgive our loans? Because the logical thing, or what has happened in the past, is when there's just way too much debt and we do the math and we see these guys are not going to be able to pay it, Western countries actually forgive. And even in some laws, I would
But Chinese is Shylock. Chinese is not.
Exactly.
They are like a commercial bank.
So I think that is the question of the future we need to be concerned about. Because if China is the Shylock and China is not going to forgive, there's no even alternative and option for forgiving our loan, our debt, then what does that mean for the people? What does that mean for the next generation? Does that mean that now China is going to own part of Kenya? Are they going to be able to possess? I mean, what is the next step? And so I think that's the bigger question our government needs to actually think about as they are borrowing. It's like, whoa, if we're not able to pay this, what does this mean for the country and the generations that come next? And I don't think it's even on the table. I don't think it's even near. It's not even a short-sighted vision. But I do know that Western countries are concerned because legally, even in US, for instance, when it comes to your own personal finance and loans, there are certain loans. The only one that is normally not forgiven is education. So you will see that American citizens have very high education loans that they took, student loans that they took. Those are the ones that you will go with to the grave. But other loans, you can declare bankruptcy and you can be forgiven. But it is not the same with China.
So you want us to declare bankruptcy as a country?
I think we are way past it. Yeah. I think we're way past it. Actually, it's a little bit scary how we behave as though we are fine financially, and we are not. We are not fine financially. And I think we saw when advisor David D, I think he went through a moment of losing his sanity, and he just began to openly share.
Meaning or losing or maybe gaining.
He was it was like
maybe gained it.
A man on a rooftop saying, things are not okay, and Kenyans were just like, what is this man, what is he saying? I think he was sounding an alarm, So for David D to be able to sound an alarm, we need to be concerned. And as a country, the government needs to listen.
Okay. But even still on, I'll not leave devolution. I know you're trying to defend devolution for things that for emotion's sake. And
no, it's not emotions.
It is, and that's actually how we ended up having counties. It was politically instigated, and it was an hangover of Majimboism by these guys who are pushing it. But let me ask you, and this is what I insist, unless the counties can raise at least 3/4 of their budget.
They're supposed to.
If you can raise 3/4 of your budgets, then we can maintain you. Because we had municipal councils that were there, and they were raising money, and they were paying their own salaries. They're not depending on the exchequer to give them money. So if counties can raise their money, because in any way they are just busy paying salaries. If they can raise their 3/4 of the budgets, if they can raise their salaries, then fine. We can have that conversation. But I still insist that counties is a lifestyle. Devolution is a lifestyle that we adopted that we cannot afford. And I think it must have been brought by people like Nerima who lived in America.
In America, me for the first time, I'm seeing roads in my county. Maybe you have lived with roads. Western hakuna mabarabara.
Which counties have built roads?
In Ugenya, Siaya, we are beginning to see roads. Busia County as well.
By counties or by Kura? There's Kura, there's Kera. So ni barabara ya nani imejenga? County imejenga barabara. The only roads that the counties have been doing are access roads.
We didn't even have those.
Hizi makabros juu adunge kabro mbili na ni World Bank funded.
Let me tell you, just some parts of Western, first of all, after devolution is when we began to see some light of progress. Even our school systems, to the schools that exist, we did not have roads. There are people in Siaya County who are now seeing roads getting close to their homes. But it was not there before devolution. So for me, I have seen the impact that it has made. I'm very happy it's there. I am, and it will stay. I will protect it to stay.
Bogo says Nerima is right on mortgage because if you take 25 million mortgage for 20 years, you'll end up paying over 55 million. Mathematics.
Wacha nikae na rent yangu.
Itakuramba. Rent yako itakuramba. Abbas Njuguna, they still own the lands to date, the name of conservancies. Gravin has a colonial. It's better Kenyans to be given the Northland, Delamere, Last and Bahati, then can decide the houses they want to build. Okay. Compress 8 counties from 47 to, and me, even I support that, because even these counties that you're talking about, they are still going to regroup again in things called economic blocks, because they have realized they cannot survive on their own. So they go and form again the economic blocks. If those blocks now can be turned into counties, I'll be more than happy.
Sawa.
Zikuwe 8 counties the way they were. That is, hapo sasa niliko. Hiyo ndio inabamba sasa. Hiyo ndio inabamba.
Some idea.
The Gravin says it's Exim Bank that gives loan to Kenya. By the way, that's true. It's commercial. It's a commercial bank, not a Chinese government. It's a private bank. Telling them to raise money, still putting burden to Kenyans. Even CDF funds are constructing roads. Yeah. Okay. Because now Kenyans don't want mortgages. Most Kenyans live. Okay. Articles now. Devolution is the best thing that ever happened. Wow. Okay. Danson Kenya GB, in regard to counties in the previous constitution, we had municipal and county councils. How are they managing their affairs? That is where I want us to go back to. Counties need to up their game as far as own resources are concerned. Hapo ndio niko. Danson niko na wewe hapo sasa. Articles now. National government has always strangled the counties. Why do counties only get 15%? And then you say they are not working? Of course not. National government has refused to hand over money for functions. But even look at the functions that have been developed. Look at health care, for instance. It's chaotic. Yeah, it's chaotic. Articles now, if devolution goes to Nagawa, Kenya, wenye wanapenda one party state kama wakati wa Moi, without devolution, waishi peke yao. We love liberty and devolution is here to stay. Devolution stays. Hashtag. Hakuna mtu anaturudisha nyuma. Wewe rudi nyayo era ukitaka. Umekazeka leo. Today you are not with me, Articles. You can afford devolution. Wacha uongo. National government steals majority, zero accountability. Okay, I'm sorry but nilikuwa tu opinion nilikuwa natoa. Nataka kuomba msamaha kwa wale ambao wanataka counties zibaki, but for me, if this country needs to survive, counties have to go. Some things have to go. There are arms that need to be cut off. The government is like a huge animal.
Yeah, it's quite big. It's massive.
So, if you want to cut on diet, you have to cut some body parts. That's what I think.
Okay.
All right. So there's a story on, of course, the regulation of church activities. There's a task force that has been formed to regulate church activities, to form a framework on regularizing church activities. I don't know. What do you think about it in the face of what has been happening?
I do think that churches have way too much freedom. I do think that there should be some regulation just because of what we are seeing. And, just to look at how other countries are doing it. Because, you see, for Kenya, I find the church very interesting. The church is very political. That's why I was surprised that some church members or church leaders were not happy when Mwaura decided to vie for president in 2022. But the church is very political. And I say this because every Sunday, politicians will be at a church somewhere in this country of ours doing a press statement at the podium. Basically, it's a rally and sharing their political views on things. It's not a word of God. It's not a Bible verse. So the reason why I think there should be regulation is not just because of the aspect of cults. It's also to understand that churches also don't pay tax. And, even when we look at the management of resources, we see a lot of wealth. And it's great that God has blessed you with a lot of money. But also let's contribute to the building of a nation, which is what you tell your congregants every Sunday, to go out there and be Christian. And even, Jesus says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So there are particular regulations that need to be put in place, because even me, I can wake up and call myself pastor. Who is stopping me?
I'm even wondering why you've not woken up. I think it's easier to run it than to run Siasa place. Right now, you could be saying, me sitting here for 1 hour, I've made a loss of 3 million. You've been talking, you've kept me here for 2 hours, I've lost 3 million.
I'm telling you, because all I need to say is, I met Jesus. And Jesus told me I am the truth and the light. And we have so many of those leaders.
And at least even you can even, you are from Western, you can even be your own Jesus.
So now you
can actually be Jesus. You don't need to be a pastor.
You don't have to add I'm from Western.
You can be the Jesus of Mumias, Busia. You come from Busia, I think. You can be Jesus of Busia. You don't need to be a pastor. Unaweza kuwa straight uko yes.
I'm telling you. That's why I'm telling you. There's just some things. And Kenyans, we when it comes to spirituality, I think we can be so gullible. Because I've even seen it happen with my friends. I don't know if I was telling you, but me, I have friends where they're struggling with their family members being in a cult. I've also experienced it with an auntie. So you can see the shift in terms of the character, the personality, and then the person just disappears. They basically remove themselves from you and join this community. So the fact that I know in my circle, it has happened to a friend of mine, it has happened to me through an auntie, that's too close. That's too close. So it means that, one of us or all of us have either it has happened to us in our circle, or we know a friend or a family member it has happened to. So that just means it's happening too frequently now. And it would be important to have policies and regulations in place so that we can have some of these fake leaders just removed from the system who are coming and destroying families. Because it destroys families. It breaks families apart. And unfortunately, now we're seeing the extreme where people have lost their lives. So it's a very serious thing.
All right. I don't know what you guys think about the regulation of churches. Do you think churches should be regulated? Because some churches have come out strongly to condemn it and say, you cannot regulate God. You cannot regulate the activities of God. How do you set the frameworks? So I don't know if you guys think we should actually regulate churches. Should we regulate churches? And if we're talking about regulations, what exactly are we regulating? Is it the way they pray?
Not the way they pray. Just if you're going to establish a church and, what are the procedures of the church, Because now people are in a forest starving, surely. What is that? I know. So it's just about the procedure in terms of, people can fast, but then it's not to death. We just need to find ways to be able to monitor, I believe.
Sasa nani atakuwa na monta makanisa yote fasting Kenya?
Because
ule mama alikuwa anachukuliwa anasema mniache wananiua Yesu.
Wananiua Yesu. You can go and report. But now, what has been happening is when there are conmen and things like that, the only way we know it's reported is on media. Sindio? Like, kuna pastor hapa alikuwa anatumianga watu wanajifanya wanaombewa. So we would see it as a investigative report on media. So people would go to the media. You can't even go and report it to the police. In this church, by the way, they are doing very strange things.
How do you regulate miracles? Me, I can't decide to perform a miracle. How do you... Where is the miracleometer to measure whether a miracle is real or not?
So for me, it's the two
I can declare a lot of things on you now.
No, it's not even about miracles. It's one, declaration of resources. 2, what are you doing with those resources? 3, to be made responsible and accountable for those resources. Those are the 3 when it comes to regulation. So the way me with my company and yours, as we have to do an audit annually, we have laws that we must follow. And within that audit, there are certain taxes that we must pay. And that is one way of monitoring. Because as soon as you monitor an organization systems, you will find there are a lot of these entities, they don't have system. It's very easy. It's a flag. So when something doesn't have system, that means it's not an institution. And if it's not an institution, it's probably being led by a quack. And then you're able to now go deeper. So it's not about the activities that we're monitoring. It's just about how this entity is functioning. And if it is dysfunctioning, then you definitely know the activities they are doing are dysfunctional. So it's just the trail is important, I think.
Okay. All right. 17 minutes past 9 a.m. But the Bible does not have any standard translation. Everybody have their own translation. Drunkards will tell you Jesus turned water into wine. But is that not true? Still walevi waliandika Biblia yenyewe. Biblia mwenye aliandika kwamba so siwekelee walevi ndio wanasema Biblia inasema. Yes, so the first miracle that Jesus ever did, he had an opportunity to do anything else on his first miracle. Maybe he could have turned the water into tea, into porridge.
It was at a wedding.
Yeah, but when people at wedding don't want tea.
It was like a party.
It's very disappointing to hear that from a lawyer. You'd have done, but you'd have turned the water into chai, into uji, something, just into juice, quencher. But he chose to turn the water into wine. And it's Friday. What you do with that information is up to you. Okay, Elvis QW, it's easier to rob a Kenyan using a scripture and a microphone than using a gun. Correct. Yeah. And that's why I say Kenyans are willing, and I can tell you this for sure, that you've seen there are the cycles that is going on, the circus that's going on with these two preachers, Mackenzie and Ezekiel. Prosecuting those guys will, I don't know what it will take. It will take a miracle. Yeah. It will take another miracle. Because there is no law that prosecutes them. There's no law that holds them culpable. Yeah. If you decide to come here and I don't know what you're taking. Maybe you're taking your own things.
It's tea.
Yeah. I don't know. It could be tea. Maybe you're sitting here. Then tomorrow they say, I'm responsible for whatever happened to you. You've done it voluntarily. So Kenyans are just generally gullible.
Yeah.
So to pay Mackenzie, to pay Ezekiel would be a very tough call.
It will be tough, but I hope that what the administration learns is, because that they lost him through the loopholes, if they do, then what can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And that's why the conversation on regulations is important, because we've seen the extreme of it, of losing over 100 people. We can't leave the situation the same. How can we protect those that are living now and for future is going to be important for the government. They can't just leave it open again, because it will happen again.
But it's difficult to regulate, if you ask me. How do you regulate it? How do you regulate people who are fasting, for instance? If I decide now, mimi yangu sasa, I want to start just fasting and I collapse and go, how is that? Because it's very difficult to regulate activities of religious activities, for instance.
But even like with you, if your company begins to grow, see, KRA, they notice.
Yeah, but see, that's the financial part. And
Exactly.
they are saying we do returns, we pay taxes. I would be interested to know, for instance, how much Ezekiel pays in taxes. Because he said the other day that since his arrest, he has lost 20 million. Said I've made a loss.
See, that is the thing. That there's something wrong there.
Yeah,
That
so I would want to know
doesn't
how much they pay. But then again, the big question is, when a church is declaring losses, where exactly have you lost? Is in wapi? Because
people are not coming to
not
church
CISO.
juu uko na hizi mashida mingi. There are no services.
so hatoi sadaka. So ni loss.
He's not
Yaani
selling
declare pesa ya Mungu
anything.
kama loss.
Every time he opens the shop, sadaka ndio profit. So that's how he's losing money. Because now you're disturbing him. He can't go to church and collect his
collect the
profit.
money.
Okay? That's how. And that's why I'm saying there's a problem there. Because companies, for instance, private companies, have to have a CSR or something going to the community. So for him to have a whole complex, you saw it, that has even a school, a church, see, that is a small country.
It's a city. And it's
So I'm like, okay, for someone to be able to do that, I think you've crossed now from being a spiritual leader. Now you're a private developer. And now, because you're a private developer,
You're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You're an entrepreneur.
Now you're in other laws. Okay.
You are in industry.
Yes. So I think those are the questions now. We really need to begin answering because apana apo there's something that's just off.
But even Grafia is raising a very critical question. But Catholics pay a lot to Vatican. And nobody's talking about that. So as I'm telling you now, doing these things is going to be very difficult. I think, and you see, the saddest part is that even people who are falling into these are very civilized people who have gone to school. You have someone who lives a lucrative job and they go to starve in Shakahola. Utamacha kazi vizuri ameresign. Nenda anauza nyumba yake anaamua sasa mimi naenda Shakahola. So how do you save this? Because the biggest argument have been ignorance. Then again, when you have people, I think the biggest way is to sensitize citizens on the importance of being self-aware, and that's the much you can do. Otherwise, mahali mtu atapeleka pesa yake huwezi jua ni wapi, na regulating churches actually is only going to work against the government. I think there are most Kenyan especially Christians would believe the church than the government. So unless it's regulated by some other people who is not government, that can be welcomed. Okay, but they cannot self-regulate also. The fact that Mackenzie convinced lawyers to fast, that's a real miracle. Okay. That Vatican is a country within a country. No one is saying it's wrong. Why do Africans value their own? Okay. Valuing our own also is another story. But at what cost is the whole thing? And you're not just talking about one church, but you're talking about religious activities across board. Islam, Hinduism, and all that. Whatever religion. But I think Christianity risks more of exploitation. There's more exploitation in Christianity than in Islam. For instance, in Islam, you don't hear these things.
No.
Because they are the ones who build their own mosques.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. They build. Nobody owns the mosque. He's just an evangelist to Islam. Mwenye amefungua kanisa kanajiita Papa Sheikh. Anaran mosque yake. I'm here to hear. But in Christianity, we have everybody, Papa and Mama. Even Nerima can decide to open a church tomorrow. And you'll see us on the next billboard. The board and yeah. So I've never seen a Muslim who decides to open a mosque somewhere in a corner and becomes an evangelist on their own. And because they have Papa Sheikh, Mama Sheikh, they come back, two of them, and they have a mosque. Now you have to fund them. I've not seen an Indian who builds a temple and becomes an Indian evangelist on their own. So I think we need to start having a video. And the truth is, yes, there are people who have a true calling of God. There are churches which are good and live by the doctrines of Christianity. But the majority of them right now is that they are just crazy people. And then you realize that over time, the church has been secularized. Yeah, the secular world is getting more into the church. I shared a video yesterday and people were complaining about it and saying there's nothing wrong about it. It's about a lady who had done a remix of Zuena. But now singing in Christianity, I think Zuena is a lady who was God and saved, now she's in church. But then again, I'm like, so why are there not the other guys remixing the gospel songs? we're having Zuena in church and the pastor is dancing seriously. Watu wanakula sherehe kama wametoka tu 18 wakaingia church direct. They're dancing. But we don't have a problem with that. But then again, it normalizes religious criminality. Yeah? Because then it becomes less and less about God and the church, God, yeah. But it becomes more and more about having people in church and taxing them to get to where you want to go. How someone wakes up and calls themselves Nabi the next day is something. It's wonder. I mean, it's the 10th wonder of this world. I mean, I can wake up and sleep. I can sleep and wake up tomorrow and say, "Nah, I'm Nabi. I'm a prophet." And I have my own church and I run it. So we must be honest. Well, there are very good churches. There are also a lot of rogue pastors, and I've seen them. You've seen people even lie to people and manipulate people to sell their properties and give it to them. For instance, look at Mackenzie. Mackenzie sahi analia ati njaa na nyimwa chakula jela. You know? Yes, Mackenzie was feeding. You look at the wife. Looks very healthy, well taken care of. Hata alikuwa na makeup, alikuwa na weave. Demo nakaa chonjo. Bibi yako akoshakaola huko, mbavu zimeingia ndani, macho ziko nje. Ama mama yako. And yes, I mean, some level of common sense also. Ndio maana nasemanga pia, those people in Shakaola deserved it.
No.
They deserved it.
No.
They did. You know, there are very basic questions that you need to ask yourself, Nerima.
I've never...
For instance, uniambie saizi, nisikunywe na huko hapa unameza chai kwa flask. Nafaa mahali nijiulize.
Gosh, I don't know. Faith is such a crazy thing.
It is, and that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we deserve what we go through. We deserve our misfortunes. Unless the people who don't deserve it are the children.
Yeah.
You know, the children don't deserve it. Because, and I think there needs to be a law that really protects children. I think in Kenya, we've not done enough in protecting our children. There needs to be a serious law that actually protects children from and protects children from manipulation. I saw that child speaking out and saying, even he was trying to go and get water for his another friend who was starving and dying, and he was beaten up. We need to have a better laws in terms of protecting our children. But any adult deserves what they go through. Unless you have a psychological problem, you are mad or whatever it is, hata mwenda wazimu unamwonanga Ngong Road akiomba chakula. Even a madman. Unataka kiambia nipe chakula, ninunulie chakula. Na ni mwenda wazimu, lakini anajua lazima akule. Sio kama imagine a normal person kama Nerima, adunaacha siasa president na resign kama director, executive director, unaenda unauza nyumba unaenda Shakaola. So what do we do for you? Tutakusaidia aje?
I don't know. But you know, it's a very slow process of brainwashing. I don't know the psychology behind it. But it's not an easy thing to break away from. But it's unfortunate.
But yeah, you also have to admire those guys who actually run cults. I will admire, because by the time you're brainwashing hundreds and hundreds of people and thousands of people, you need to be a genius.
There's something, yeah.
You need to be a genius. Now, see Dumaroga.
There's something.
And the only way to regulate is all pastors to be paid like teachers, no asking money from congregants, and all churches to come with a comprehensive syllabus of teachings. Okay.
That's an idea.
I don't know how to regulate, but I can tell you it's very difficult to do it. But then again, religion is another question that's coming. When you go to Europe now, actually, the people who brought us religions, actually, when you go to Europe now, nobody cares about church. When you go to London, for instance, a lot of churches have been converted into nightclubs and social halls and all that. It's something that's going, and the churches are beginning to be twisted by the secularization of the world. So it's a conversation that needs to be had, and it's very as sensitive as it is. That thing of also saying, touch not the anointed is what has led us to where we are today. So we are going to touch you all anointed, whether you are anointed by oil, by blue band, by whatever it is. We are going to come for you. Okay, what you are anointed with. And we still question the operations of the church. So, well, that is it. 29 minutes past 9 a.m. What's your tackle of the day?
Mine is, I think that the countries in the West who have left religion is because of access. The poorer you are, the more spiritual or religious you become. You're laughing. I really think there's a connection.
A serious one.
Yeah, because you want to feel that there's a purpose to this suffering. And if you hear a lot of the messages a lot of these guys preach is about prosperity. And so I think that's the pull factor in these large crowds. It's people wanting a better life for themselves. So when you go to other countries where people have access and better standards of living, they already have their basic needs. So you can't preach to them about prosperity, because for some of them, it's not just about prosperity. So I think my parting shot for today is follow up on the Meta case. I am still staying there. I think it's a very interesting case to watch. I think it's going to change a number of things in terms of labor and digital work, especially for youth in this country. And I hope that the courts continue to remain on the side of Kenyans, because so far the court has remained on the side of the people. So I'm very proud of our judicial system right now.
Okay. I think I agree with you on the correlation between religion and poverty or lack. I've ever noticed that when people are falling in church, wale wenye wanakuanga wamekaa mbele waangukangi. For instance, mugeni wa pastor. When in church, naturally, the people who sit in the front are the rich people. You know, people trive and praise with the Quran, and everyone else is screaming when wako tu. Waruki.
They're still.
Wanaimba na starehe. They don't fall. The people who fall are at the back. Citizens. Wanaangukaga. Ndio wanaangukaga. Yani unasikia kabisa unasema, this has spoken to my soul. Unakumbuka shida zako zote ziko nyumbani. Unasikia ndio brrrr bangu. These people mbele, I've never seen. I'm yet to see those guys at the front in church falling. Yeah, you know, wakianguka. So then there's a serious correlation between being exploited and poverty. But then again, I've seen rich people who hand over their properties.
I know, yeah.
They sell their properties, give to their pastors, and they go and live in squalor. So all of this has happened. But then I think if we can have a more empowered population, then they have the capacity to question things. They have the capacity to question doctrine. They have the capacity to question a lot of things and to ask themselves questions. For instance, there's no way you can convince me to stay hungry for, I don't know, whatever it is that you're telling me. But if if someone who is poor, they don't see the difference. Like, I'm not going to eat anyway. What's the difference? Yeah. And if you're telling me to fast so that I can find a solution for my life, and anyway, I don't have a meal for today, so it's a zero-sum game. Yeah? Goal. So it's fine. I'll fast. Then again, it goes to the extremes. And it's very dangerous to have a population that has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Any single time, if you have people who have nothing to lose, anywhere, in any environment, if you have people who have nothing to lose, it becomes very difficult to deal with them and to control them because they are capable of any single thing. Yeah. And there's no restraint. There's nothing they care about. Ni kama kwenda America. When you're going to America, the first thing that they want to ascertain before they give you a visa is that you're not running away, that you have things to come back to. You know? If you have nothing to lose from where you are living, from where you are, then they don't give you that. You know? They cannot give you a visa if they know like, Nerima yu alisha sare Kenya life, like, give up, ameuza shamba, ameuza nyumba, ameramba yote imeisha, asa ile kino mpagisha ni America. They'll not give you visa. They give it to people who know they have to come back and look after something. So someone dealing with citizens who have nothing to lose is a very dangerous thing. And it has caused uprising in countries. It has caused a lot of crazy things in countries. It happens. So having also a population that has nothing to lose, a population that is desperate, falls for any single thing. All right. This has been the talk called the Sheria Wiki edition of the 12th of May, 2023. And I've been with Nerima, Wako, Executive Director, Siasa. Please, in a conversation with you. Thank you so much for every tackler who keeps doing every single morning. Thank you for making this show the biggest conversation in Kenya. Thanks for always making sure that we give a chance and we're able to come live every single day. So come when mkulima so that we can come back again on Monday. If you're a farmer, please ensure you can get your feed products from Fugo Feeds or Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. Guarantees you quality and also guarantees you nutritional balance and value to ensure that your animals are not only healthy, but also give you the best value in the market. Until Monday on the Common Sense edition, we hope we're going to have tangu sarenda sijawahi kuona akiangu. Sasa tangu na vile sarenda churches sijawahi kuona akianguka, lakini sialilia. It's a step in the right direction. You've seen them sometimes it takes, but yeah, you need to question. I see you on Monday on the Common Sense edition. We hope you're going to have CS Aden Duale to tell us about his book, For the Record. So join us on Monday from 7:30 a.m. as we get to look at the political intrigues in Kenya, especially in 2013 takeover. That's what he has really focused on. Until then, enjoy your weekend have fun, but please ensure that you can stay alive, that we can see you on Monday. Bye-bye. This is The Tackle, and it ends now. Bye-bye, and we love you.